Hi YouTube. I had a lot of emails, text messages, private messages asking me how I got my son back. It's a long journey. I got my son back within 3 years. Some people would get their kids back within a week, probably a month. Some people would never get their kids back. But my story is I had a caseworker that knew that they were doing something wrong. My son made a mistake. I didn't know what he did at the time. I know now. And yeah, no mother wants to hear the fact that your son did something illegal. But my son was only 8 years old when they took him. He was still learning who he was. He was a very happy, very wonderful, loving child. Then DCFS took him. By the time I got him back, my son died. What they gave back to me was not my son. He scared most of the family. But that's another story. The story is to get your son back, or your child, daughter, grandkid, doesn't matter. But you need to get your kids back from them before they replace your loving and beautiful child with someone or something in its place. My caseworker, she was awesome. She realized that they were in the wrong. She was going to give me my son back. She got fired in the process before she was able to give my son back. They replaced him with a guy that my caseworker warned me about. That he was sexist, racist, and he didn't like anyone that wasn't a Mormon. So, if you could tell, I'm not Mormon. Yeah. I'm not white. And I'm not a man. Which kind of worked in my favor a little bit because my fiance was all three. But with him, he didn't like the fact that a white person was with the colored. You know, he was stuck in the 1800s. But anyway, his name was Justin Northway. Bear with me. This guy was a tower of evil. He will make up lies, stories. He will come up with some weird crap against you. You will be totally shocked because you would not even know this is coming until you are in court. Number one, they're a courted lawyer that they send you. Fire them. Get a real lawyer. Someone on your payroll. The lawyer that they send you is on DCFS's payroll. They will just sit there and look at a magazine while they're judging your fate. So, that's what I did. When I found out that my lawyer was a douche, I went and got a new one. I had to sacrifice a lot in order to pay him. And he knew that. Which is why that my lawyer literally cut his prices in half. It only cost me $3,000 to have him for as long as I needed him. I had him for 3 years. His name is Barton Warren. If any of you guys happen to be in the Salt Lake area and you need a good lawyer. He is a very good judge of character. He knows when you're telling the truth. And that would actually be in your favor so that he could fight for you. The other thing, I was 2 steps ahead of them. I was doing classes. I was doing Mommy and Me classes. I did church classes. I did anger management classes. I did parenting classes. I did 7 different kinds of parenting classes. I am certified in every single one of these classes. Anger management class was a big problem with me since I didn't have an anger problem. I've never raised a hand to my kids. I yelled at them. But who hasn't? Who hasn't yelled at their kids? My kids never been spanked. But they were good kids. They never had a reason to get spanked. I mean, my kids were A students. Their teachers loved them. They had a lot of friends. Then DCFS came in our lives. My oldest son, they couldn't manipulate. He was too much of a mama's boy, which is still the case since he's 19 now. My youngest one at the time was just born, but he's 13 now. And he sticks with me and Dad very strong. Our bond is very strong as a family. My middle son, he was 8 years old when they took him. It's sad. My son made one mistake. We caught it in time before it became worse. We could have kept our mouth shut, but he needed therapy, and DCFS was called because of therapy. No parent could handle what my son did. I'm just glad that it happened in our family. But enough of that. What you came to see this video is how to work against DCFS and when. 1. Find a DCFS worker that has a grudge against her own company. Mine got fired because she knew what was right and she wanted to fix it. I was armed with everything that she knew. They're going to put a wedge against you and your spouse. If your spouse isn't the reason why DCFS took your kids, they will find a way to separate you from them. Bear in mind, you work together, you're stronger than anything. DCFS cannot win if you're together. If I knew that, I wouldn't have almost lost my youngest son. It's very hard, but I'm staying strong for you guys. I will be on your side no matter what. Go to the classes. Get a new lawyer. Have someone on your side. They're going to put a therapist in your home. They are going to sit there and tell you that there's nothing to worry about. That they see how well you love your kids and how a good family you are. They will sit there and convince you that they are on your side. They're not. They will go to court and say the complete opposite of what they told you. Which I don't understand why, but they did. I actually sent my side of the story to the judge one time because they refused to let me talk. They refused to let me have my say on anything. So I decided to write a letter to my judge. And so she got to know who I was and why I was concerned. I changed my lawyer in the middle of the process. I think it was like the second time going to court. I realized my lawyer is not doing shit. He wouldn't let me talk. And he would always say, there's nothing to say here, and sit back down. DCFS did a lot of talking. So, I decided to get a new lawyer. His name is Barton Warren. I hope I told you guys that before, but his name is Barton Warren. If you want this guy to fight for you, hire him. He is awesome. Especially if you have criminal charges against you. He will fight for you by the skin of his teeth. Especially if he knows that you are innocent. And he knew I was innocent. The other thing, make sure you go to these classes. It doesn't matter how stupid they are. Just go to them, participate, get the certificate. So when DCFS requests that you go to these classes, you've already have proof that you did. I sent mine to the judge. I didn't send mine to DCFS. Because I wanted to make sure that they stepped into everything. Where it looks like they don't know what their left hand is doing with the right hand, you know. Anyway, it was so funny. When the judge talked to DCFS and DCFS requested that I should go to these parenting classes and all these other classes, the judge literally said she's already completed them And here's the paperwork. DCFS did not even have copies of that paperwork. I sent them straight to the judge. I sent a lot of my stuff straight to the judge. I don't care about DCFS. Do not give them things so that they could work to go against you. So once I sent these paperwork to the judge, DCFS had to withdraw everything that they said and made him look bad. What also made him look bad is that my son was supposed to be in therapy during 6 months of the time that they had him. They had him in a place called a Christmas box house. It's where they have children taken from their home into this house that has toys, video games, anything your kid's heart desires. They will brainwash the kids on wanting to stay there, to manipulate them to say negative things about his family, just so that he could stay there. My son wanted to come home. When they took him away from my house, they took him to my mom's. They found one little thing, one little minor thing, and they took him from my mom's house because my mom was still letting me have contact. I was still able to pick him up and do things with him. I was able to take him to school and all that stuff. And DCFS did not like it. Go fig. So, the best thing for you guys to do is to be one step ahead of them. At all times. Stay together. You are stronger together. Even if you have anger, if DCFS purposely manipulates you guys on using one thing that you're having problems with, they will do something to make that problem bigger, that you would have hatred for each other and separate. They did that for me and my fiance. My fiance took my son, my youngest son. I wanted to protect him. I felt like my fiance was trying to hand my son over to them, which in reality, he was doing the same thing. He was protecting my son, and he thought I was going to hand my son to him, to DCFS. Well, we found out that the caseworker that got fired, she told me that they were trying to manipulate my fiance so much that they were going to file a report against him for child neglect because my son has not been to school for 2 months, and he's been sick within those 2 months while he was in custody with my fiance. Yeah. If my fiance did not wake up from their little spell, I would have lost my son and my middle son. But he woke up. He realized what they were doing. He came back. I started taking him to school, taking care of my son like I normally did. And we got back together again. Realized that DCFS told my fiance that I would never get my son back. But and then, well, not in reality. They told me that if I was away from my fiance, I could get my son back. So, you could tell. Tempted, huh? We got back together. 2 marriage years later, I got my son back. Now, here's the part. You got to try to get your son back as fast as you can. Because in the time that my son was taken, they put him in a Christmas box house. They had him go to a therapy guy who basically told him that family is nothing and that he should not even want the need to be home, and told him that it was unsafe for him to be at home. And they tried so hard to get me to try to convince my son to call the foster parent mom. That pissed me off. Your child is your child, not the freaking foster parent's child. This foster parent I wanted to hurt. Anyway, I didn't want to show any anger, because then that plays into their role. You need to be neutral, basically. Wait until they make a mistake. My mistake was that they didn't put him in therapy when they first got him. Yeah, 6 months. My son wasn't in therapy. And when they finally did, they took him to a guy named Ryan Grant. This son of a bitch literally told my son that he did not have to deal with any family problems. That he could easily just leave, do whatever the hell he wanted. Manipulated him to go against family. Now, bear in mind that I heard another story about Ryan Grant from another caseworker, where his client decided to ask his help because the foster kid killed her dog, or tried to. And all Ryan Grant said was, get rid of the dog. Really? You can't get rid of a dog. Dogs are like children too. They're your kids too. Doesn't matter. I mean, what are you going to do? If they try to kill your youngest child, is he really going to say get rid of that child? You know? Seriously. Something's wrong with this therapist, and he should be taken out of business. Nowadays, he works for kids that's been sexually molested. Yeah. I could just see the stuff that he's telling those kids. Anyway, they tried to put my other 2 kids in therapy. That therapist told them that my kids don't need therapy. So they released them. They put me in therapy. And this therapist tried to tell them that I'm a narcissist, that I'm in love with myself, and I forced my kids to tell me that they love me. Yeah. You could see how fast I dropped that therapist. Because, number one, I've never been a narcissist. Do I love myself? Not really. Matter of fact, I have a little bit of mental problem where I don't like the way I look. But as long as I have my significant other, my fiance, he keeps telling me how pretty I am and stuff, so he tries to convince me, which sometimes it does not work. But I care about my kids. So my kids become first over me. Nobody tells me that I have to take care of myself first over my children. So, anyway, sorry, tearing up. I went and got a new therapist. A really good one. Her name was Black. Her last name was. Can't remember her first name. Oh, Alicia Black. She did marriage counseling. And she did individual counseling. I asked her to do one of those tests that DCFS had me do. And found out that, hold and behold, I'm not a narcissist. I'm not in love with myself. And I do not tell my kids to tell me that they love me. I mean, don't kids always tell their parents they love them? And I know for a fact parents tell their kids they love them. I mean, what is it? Are their kids narcissists? Are their kids in love with themselves? Because that us parents tell them we love them? So, I went and got this therapist. And she basically threw that other test out of the water. Yeah. She actually made it look like that DCFS did not know what they were talking about. Which was good. Yeah. I actually had a lot of things against them. The other thing is, sorry, it was my dog. The other thing is that when you go to court, you know how they record everything? Well, you could actually get request copies for those. Request copies for every paperwork. Everything. After DCFS case is closed, you could go back to the DCFS building and request for those copies, those papers. And you will kind of notice a lot of their stuff that's on those papers are very inconsistent. Yeah. I'm building a case to sue the state of Utah and to DCFS. And I hope I win, because these bastards should not take another child away from their parents. Yeah, there are certain families, like drug addicts, alcoholics should have their kids removed for the safety of the child, but not an innocent child with family members that never did anything wrong. Anyway, I did tell you that I was going to tell you why you want to get them fast. DCFS brainwashes these kids. These kids get so brainwashed that by the time they come home, they're not your child. The thoughts, the thinking, even to their expressions, you could tell that it's not your child. They could be a demon in your child that DCFS planted. This kid that was once a loving, beautiful child that was getting all A's, that had an IQ of 180 when he was 8, came back to me, hooked on drugs, hooked on alcohol. His IQ went down to 50. My son had a knack on working on computers. Now my son doesn't even know what a computer is. He was so hooked on drugs, alcohol, having sexual intercourses with children. And this is not my son. You need to get your kids back fast. I do not want any other families going through what I had to go through. I had 3 years fighting for my son. I get my son back. He doesn't even appreciate the breath that I had to take and endure to get him back. He sits there, tells us that it's our fault that he's the way he is. They sent him in a foster home, that their own children are gang members. Yeah, gang members. They taught my son bagging his pants, the way he dresses, his attitude, all of that. That's not him. When he came home, I felt I was unsafe with this child in my home. If any of you guys ever seen the news of a mother getting run over in their driveway by her own son. Hi everybody, I'm the mother. And now I have to go through life knowing that my son, the DCFS, turned against his own family. And I don't want this happening to another family. whatever you do, guys, fight. Find others that are dealing with the same thing. Help each other. Have your entire family involved. We cannot let DCFS win and take our children and turn them into psychopaths. My son didn't even get a chance. I missed his birthdays. I miss a lot of things, and I cannot get back. But with my experience, I want to arm you guys. Get your children back before it's too late. Fight. Take 2 steps ahead of them. These bastards should be closed down. Destroyed. The other thing too, to let all you guys know, my mother, she is freedom warfighter. Find her. She's all over media. She's on Facebook. She's on YouTube. Tell her your stories. The more you guys arm her with everything that you guys are going through, she will be able to close this company down. She just needs all of our help. We are America. And we shouldn't be treated like this at all. These are our children. And these people should not come into our homes and tell us how to raise our children. Or take our children away from us. We are strong together, united. We all stick together for each other. Fight. That's all I could say. Is fight. And whatever they throw at you, throw it back at them 10 times harder. Well, that's it. Just wanted to make sure that everybody knows what I'm going through and what you guys could do to prevent it from happening to you. Good luck. We all are war fighters. These guys should not win. Good luck.